The Stone Age. The origins of human fighting trace back to the Stone Age, when anatomy and intelligence combined to create the first true combat-capable species. As early hominins adopted an upright posture, the arms were freed for manipulation and force generation. The shoulder joint evolved to rotate through a wide range of motion, while opposable thumbs and strengthened wrists provided precise grip and control. These traits, along with forward-facing vision and improved balance, transformed the human upper body into an adaptable striking and throwing system. The earliest evidence of weapon use dates to roughly 3.3 million years ago in East Africa, where crude stone flakes and hammerstones were used to butcher animals and break bone. Over time, these tools evolved into sharpened hand axes, pointed spears, and weighted clubs, each representing a new stage in the refinement of human violence. These weapons amplified the body's natural mechanics, the rotational torque of the hips, the kinetic chain from shoulder to wrist, and the ability to deliver targeted impact beyond arm's reach. Fighting during this era was directly tied to survival. Small hunter-gatherer groups competed for food, water, and territory, while interpersonal aggression reinforced dominance hierarchies within tribes. Combat methods were primitive but effective: grappling, striking, and the use of thrown projectiles to maintain distance. The same techniques developed for hunting animals were applied in conflicts between humans, linking physical survival to social standing. The continuous use of tools and weapons influenced human physiology. Repetitive striking and throwing strengthened the deltoids, forearms, and core muscles, while endurance hunting developed cardiovascular resilience, essential for sustained conflict. Cognitive evolution added new dimensions: anticipation, coordination, and the ability to strategize during confrontation. By the end of the Stone Age, humans possessed the defining elements of combat as both a biological and cultural behavior. Upright posture, tool use, and social organization had turned raw aggression into controlled technique, laying the evolutionary groundwork for every future form of fighting. The Iron Age. The Iron Age marked a decisive shift in how humans fought. The discovery and widespread use of iron, beginning around 1200 BC, transformed both weapon technology and the physical demands placed on the human body. Unlike bronze, which was softer and costly, iron could be forged into sharper, stronger, and more durable blades. This innovation changed combat from short, opportunistic encounters into prolonged, organized confrontations requiring endurance, coordination, and discipline. Iron weaponry, swords, spears, axes, and arrowheads became extensions of human anatomy. The rotational strength of the torso, the precision of the wrist, and the balance of foot placement all dictated a fighter's effectiveness. Shields introduced the need for symmetrical strength and continuous motion between offense and defense. Prolonged use of these tools encouraged the development of stronger shoulder girdles, reinforced grip muscles, and improved postural stability, particularly in the hips and lower back. With weapons came specialization. Infantry, archers, and cavalry each demanded distinct movement patterns and conditioning. Soldiers trained through repetitive drilling, learning timing, coordination, and group formation. Early forms of what would become martial systems. Combat sports such as wrestling, boxing, and pankration in ancient Greece further refined human biomechanics, teaching controlled aggression, leverage, and energy efficiency. The reasons for fighting also evolved. Warfare became an instrument of expansion, governance, and economic control. Organized states and empires required trained fighters capable of sustained combat, not spontaneous brawling. Personal duels and ritualized combat persisted as displays of status, reinforcing the connection between physical skill and social authority. By the height of the Iron Age, human combat had progressed from instinctive survival to a structured discipline. The fusion of stronger materials, organized armies, and deliberate training shaped the human body for precision, endurance, and adaptability. The same evolutionary framework that once supported tool use now underpinned the earliest true martial techniques, turning physical confrontation into an applied science of movement and control. The Classical Era. During the Classical Era, roughly between 500 BC and 500 AD, fighting evolved from a functional survival skill into a formalized discipline. Civilizations such as Greece, Rome, India, and China began to systematize combat, merging physical technique with philosophy, science, and statecraft. Warfare was no longer just a contest of strength. It became a test of coordination, organization, and controlled violence. In Greece, combat sports such as boxing, wrestling, and pankration developed under athletic institutions that emphasized precision, endurance, and mental discipline. These sports refined striking mechanics, stance control, and joint manipulation, laying the foundation for later martial arts. The human body was trained symmetrically. Balance, rhythm, and timing were considered as vital as strength. Through these disciplines, fighting became measurable, a demonstration of training rather than instinct. In Rome, hand-to-hand combat was institutionalized within the military. Legionary training prioritized group cohesion, standardized footwork, and shield coordination. Soldiers practiced with heavier wooden weapons to build strength and control, a method that improved reaction time when using real arms in battle. Gladiatorial combat further enhanced anatomical understanding, revealing which strikes, angles, and movements were most effective against a resisting opponent. Across Asia, similar developments occurred independently. In India, early forms of Kalaripayattu and other martial systems combined flexibility, weapon control, and breath regulation. In China, the roots of Kung Fu emerged from military drills and philosophical study, emphasizing efficiency, balance, and internal control. Each culture recognized that fighting required harmony between the body's mechanical potential and the mind's ability to regulate aggression. The reasons for fighting also diversified. Beyond warfare, combat became a structured sport, a means of education, and a way to cultivate discipline and identity. Victory depended less on brute endurance and more on refined skill, strategy, and composure under pressure. By the end of the classical era, humans had achieved mastery over their own aggression. Fighting was no longer purely physical, it had become intellectual. The integration of training, philosophy, and physiology defined combat as an art form and set the framework for all later martial traditions. Medieval era. By the medieval era, fighting had become both a profession and a form of public entertainment. The groundwork laid by the classical world, its institutions, arenas, and organized training systems, transformed physical combat into a social event. The Roman Colosseum had already demonstrated that violence could be staged, regulated, and monetized. Gladiatorial combat, though originating earlier, set the template for how societies would consume organized violence, as ritual, as spectacle, and as a reflection of political power. Human physiology had by now fully adapted to the demands of weapon-based combat. The average fighter trained with armor, heavy weapons, and shields that required strong legs, resilient shoulders, and an efficient core to maintain endurance. The widespread use of a chainmail and plate shifted emphasis away from speed toward leverage, technique, and control. Strikes were less decisive. Grappling, disarming, and joint manipulation became the practical means of overcoming protection. Combat manuals began to appear across Europe. Masters such as Fiore de Liberi and Johannes Lichtenauer documented structured systems of strikes, holds, and counters, early codifications of biomechanics and tactical logic. Their work represents the transition of fighting from instinctive motion to deliberate craft. In Asia, parallel traditions such as Jujutsu, Kenjutsu, and Silat developed within warrior classes, emphasizing efficiency, balance, and mental focus. The body was now trained systematically for function rather than appearance. Outside of warfare, combat performance became a public attraction. Tournaments and duels displayed martial skill before crowds, merging violence with ceremony. Knights fought to demonstrate honor and prestige. Commoners fought for livelihood or survival. This normalization of staged combat deepened humanity's psychological relationship with violence. It became something to observe, analyze, and eventually to enjoy. The reasons for fighting now extended beyond necessity. Combat served as entertainment, social validation, and a vehicle for moral and religious narratives. Fighting embodied both the chaos of war and the order of discipline. By the late medieval period, the act of combat had evolved into a structured human expression, part survival mechanism, part cultural ritual, preserving the physical techniques of earlier ages while transforming violence into spectacle. The early modern era. The early modern era marked a turning point in the human understanding of violence. As firearms replaced swords on the battlefield, hand-to-hand combat shifted from survival skill to specialized discipline. Fighting began to separate into two distinct paths: martial training for soldiers and refined combat for individuals, practiced through fencing, boxing, and ritualized duels. For the first time, technique and physics mattered more than brute endurance. The introduction of fencing schools across Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries brought combat under the lens of scientific observation. Movements were analyzed for balance, timing, and leverage. Posture and precision became measurable components of efficiency. Fighters learned how momentum could be redirected, how distance governed reaction time, and how the smallest shift in foot placement could determine survival. Fencing masters described combat not as chaos, but as geometry. Angles, lines, and timing reduced to mechanical law. The human body adapted accordingly. Training favored coordination, leg strength, and controlled respiration over raw strength. Footwork drills developed rapid neuromuscular responses, while lunging and parrying refined reaction speed and spatial awareness. The fighter's physique became leaner, more symmetrical, optimized for economy of motion. At the same time, bare-knuckle boxing rose in popularity across Britain. It emphasized endurance, rhythm, and anatomical targeting, striking not only with force, but with mechanical intent. Combined with fencing, it created a new archetype, the trained civilian fighter, capable of applying both discipline and decisiveness under pressure. The reasons for fighting also changed. Duels of honor replaced public executions as society's dominant form of controlled violence. Combat became an expression of character, proof of courage, composure, and mastery of the self. The act of fighting was now governed by rules, etiquette, and emerging ethical codes. By the end of this era, humanity had transformed combat into a rational pursuit. Fighting had become a laboratory of movement, balance, and reaction, where biology met mathematics and the chaos of survival evolved into the science of control. The modern era. In the modern era, fighting has become a synthesis of centuries of knowledge, biomechanics, psychology, and global exchange. Where early combat relied on instinct and endurance, modern systems depend on analysis and precision. The human body itself has not changed. but our understanding of it has advanced to an unprecedented level. The rise of organized combat sports in the late 19th and 20th centuries, boxing, judo, wrestling, and later mixed martial arts, transformed fighting into a measurable science. Coaches began studying movement patterns, muscle activation, and reaction timing. High-speed cameras, electromyography, and sports medicine revealed exactly how force travels through the kinetic chain, from the feet to the hips, through the torso, and into the striking limb. Training shifted from repetition to optimization, plyometrics for explosive power, interval conditioning for recovery, and neural drills for precision. Modern fighters train as athletes and as analysts. Data now defines everything: heart rate zones, reaction latency, strike velocity. Nutrition, sleep, and psychological regulation are as central to success as strength or technique. The result is a fighter whose performance can be engineered rather than inherited. Culturally, combat has become universal. From Olympic judo to televised mixed martial arts, fighting functions as both competition and entertainment, echoing the same public fascination once seen in the ancient arenas. Military and police forces apply parallel principles through systems such as Krav Maga and modern combatives, emphasizing efficiency and situational awareness over ritual. The reasons for fighting today are more controlled but no less human. Self-defense, competition, identity, and mastery. Modern combat represents the culmination of the entire evolutionary arc, from the instinctive aggression of the Stone Age to a discipline governed by physics, psychology, and data. The body that once survived through raw instinct now fights through science, a precise instrument honed by thousands of years of adaptation and understanding.